when I use a trademark out in the marketplace, I don't have to register it either. I can just put it out there, and that's my trademark. But once it gets used in the marketplace, and I can prove that I used it first, I can then stop somebody.
That can be very difficult, couldn't it?
Sure.
It's a whole proving process, which is,
Right.
I guess, the reason why registration is an issue.
That's the whole point of registration.
Right.
Now let's go back to, that's one of the main reasons why you want to register your copyright. For example, it doesn't cost a lot of money to register copyright. You can do it yourself through copyright.gov. And I recommend anybody who's created their own content on a website to take the time and spend the money and copyright it. Just because it's registered, it's easier to prove. You can then put, for example, a little circle with an R on it. It says registered. There's nothing wrong with writing a little circle with a C or a little circle with a TM.
Right.
For a trademark, you can do that. All you're saying is, I'm claiming I wrote this first.
Right.
When you replace it with an R, put registered copyright, you're letting the world know, not only am I claiming it, you can look on file and see when I prepared this. So that makes it a very easy way to prove when you came up with this work. Or in the business of trademark, when you came up with this logo or phrase for your company that now has become associated with your company. So we certainly would recommend to folks out there that they take the time, create their own content, don't cut and paste, and then register your copyright when you finish creating your website or your business model.
But isn't there a point of where it may not be practical? Like for me, I'm a fairly prolific writer. I mean, if I ran around and tried to register every article I wrote and every piece,
it would get expensive.
Yes. Well, I mean, not to mention administrative nightmare. I mean, I run a pretty small office.
Right.
What do you do in those type of situations? Pick and choose?
There's a couple of things that you can do. The first thing that you can do is not worry about it. You've written it, you've posted it on the internet, and you can, in a number of ways, prove when you wrote it. You know, one of the common things that people say they do with songs, for example, is they put it in an envelope and they mail 4 copies of it to themselves.
Really?
And it's called a poor man's copyright.
That's pretty interesting. I've never heard that.
Yeah, you take the work,
yeah.
Let's say the song or the article or whatever
Right.
it is, you put it in an envelope, you seal the envelope, and then you mail it to yourself and you leave yourself several copies of it sealed. And so then when you rip it open, you can show the envelope has a date on it and the material is inside.
That is so funny. I've never heard that.
Right, they call it a poor man's copyright.
Does it actually work?
It's never been upheld in the United States court. Nobody has ever actually been confronted with someone coming and saying, "Hey, look at this envelope. I've got it." I actually came up one time in a Michael Jackson case.
Okay.
He was being sued for copyright. Somebody came in with the poor man's copyright, and the case ended up settling before even the magic envelope was even open to see if it was really in there. It was probably not worth it to the Jackson, to Michael Jackson or whoever owned the copyright to fight it. But so you could do that. That's never been proven, but common sense says never been tested.
I got you.
Common sense says it might work. At least it's something to show when you did it. But so you could just ignore it. You could do a poor man's copyright. But the other thing that you could do is you could wait till you've accumulated 20 articles and register them at once as a compilation.
Really?
Yeah, you can group works of art together.
Or text.
Or
articles.
We'll call it a work.
Okay, that's what you call it.
It's a work. It's a work of art.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Okay, I never thought about it.
It's a work. Yeah,
art.
it's a work. That's the technical term for it. Because this way you don't have to say song
I understand.
or image. It's a work.
Okay.
And so you take the work and you put 10 of them together, 15, 20, 100, whatever. And you say, this is Matt Chan articles from 2009. Do the whole year, let's say. And now they're all copyright registered.
Very interesting.
Right, now, that's what's happening also in the field of digital imagery. We could talk a little bit about that here.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay. there are two main companies that are involved in this litigation nightmare that's being caused over alleged infringement of digital images, and it's Getty and Masterfile.
They're the big boys.
Those are the two big guys. Other people are doing it, but nobody is doing it at their level.
I see.
Getty does not have registered copyright images in 90% of their claims.
Really?
Right.
How do you know this?
Well, first of all, we have several hundred cases against them.
Yeah, right.
They've admitted it. I don't think it's really all that much of a secret. We have internal memos that have been produced that show that they don't register, and they recommend to the photographer to register, because you see what happens is Getty doesn't actually own the photos.
That's right.
They have photographers who license the photos to them. So it would cost a lot of money to individually register each photo. Remember,
absolutely,
we're talking about millions of images potentially. So Getty says to the photographer, before you come to us, you probably would be better off registering the copyright yourself, because the photographer only has X number of images. Okay, Getty has hundreds of photographers.
Yes.
So if each person registers their own and then licenses it to Getty, Getty is covered. So they recommend that. So a small percentage of photographers do register their images. But the vast majority of Getty images are non-registered.
Why do you think that is?
Money, cost.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just for the benefit. That's the only reason. There's no other reason. It's to save money. Now, what Masterfile does is the opposite. All of their images are registered. But what they do is they register them as compilations. So they'll take literally 2,500 images and give it one copyright registration. And they might call it Masterfile Volume X, images 1 through, 2,500. Okay? So now they all get registered. So now the issue here is, and has been, that, so what happens now if you take one or two of those images, or 4 or 5 of those images from that compilation? Is that 4 infringements, because it's 4 images? Or is it 1 infringement, because it's 1 compilation?
I understand.
Okay, so the copyright law says, for the purpose of registrations, any works registered as a volume or a compilation count as 1 work.
Interesting.
So it's clear to us that that means you could take 1,100 of those 2,500 images, and it would count as 1 infringement. Now there's a bill pending for the Senate. The act has already passed the Senate, it's on the way to the House, that would change that to say, but if you infringe different ones, you're entitled to individual damages. So right now, the law is a little bit gray in this area. It hasn't been tested. And so you have to kind of keep apprised of what's going on in the Congress as to whether this issue is going to be changed or not. But that's another way to save money, and that's another way to not have to constantly register every time you write something new. You can take all of the articles, put them in a compilation, and register it annually. And this way you have proof as to when it was written, and you only risk that someone's going to infringe during this little narrow 12-month window, and then you only have to keep track of 1 registration a year, and it costs, under $100.
So, just so I understand this, why is there such a difference between the two companies and how they approach this? I mean, have you been able to figure this out?
Well,
how is it that all of the images are registered under Masterfile? Are they insisting this all get registered before they will take it on?
Masterfile does their own registration.
Oh, they do it on behalf of the photographers.
They take it on because they, I would imagine, feel that it makes it easier to prove their claim. And of course it does. And it makes it easier to get these large damages. So let's talk a little bit about that. Why register? Okay. One of the main things you get beyond obviously proving very simply when you wrote the work or registered the work, you could register a work 800 days after you wrote it, anytime, doesn't matter. So once you register the work, you're now entitled to a different set of damages.